On today's episode, we hear the story of Liz Hatton, a young woman whose love for Disney, passion for photography, and unwavering strength left a lasting impact on everyone she met. Today's March 7th, 2025, and this is a very special episode, number 752 of the Main Street Magic Podcast.
Jeremy and Rhonda are more than a little fond of Disney World, so they made this podcast to share it all with you. Reports and resorts, top 10 lists of all sorts. Main Street Magic's bringing it home for you.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Main Street Magic. I am your host, Jeremy Stein, and as always, I'm joined by my lovely wife, Rhonda.
Hey guys! Make sure you check us out on the web at mainstmagic.com, as well as follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at mainstmagic, and on TikTok at MSM Podcast.
If you want to be part of the community and join the conversation, in addition to live streams from the parks and our weekly live show, head to Facebook and search for the Main Street Magic community and ask to join.
And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you can get brand new episodes every Tuesday and Friday.
Planning a trip to Disneyland or Walt Disney World can be overwhelming and at times just downright frustrating. But don't worry, because Mouse Dining removes the frustration of booking Disney dining reservations, alerting you when they spot availability for your desired restaurant, date, meal, and time. Visit msmfriends.com to use this free service. Are you ready for your bucket list trip? Our trusted partner, MEI Travel, will handle the planning so you can focus on the memories. They offer free vacation planning services and have nearly 20 years of experience creating memorable vacations. Visit mainstmagic.com/travel for a fee-free, no-obligation quote today. Here at Main Street Magic, our goal has always been to help you make the most of your Disney vacation by sharing the best tips, tricks, and strategies to save you time and money while creating unforgettable memories. But beyond the planning advice and park strategies, we also believe in the power of storytelling, the moments that truly bring magic to life in ways that extend far beyond the parks. Disney has a way of connecting people, building lifelong friendships, and creating experiences that shape lives in extraordinary ways. That's why we're passionate about sharing the stories that matter. Stories of resilience, love, and inspiration that remind us of the deeper magic that happens when Disney brings people together. Whether it's a family finding joy in the parks during difficult times, a friendship formed on a Disney cruise, or a dream fulfilled against all odds, we believe these stories deserve to be told. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about the rides, the food, or the attractions. It's about the people, the moments, and the impact Disney has on all of us. Today, I'm honored to share the inspiring story of Liz Hatton, a young woman whose love for Disney, passion for photography, and unwavering strength left a lasting impact on everyone she met. I talked to Liz's mom, Vicky, today about her journey that took her from magical Disney vacations and unforgettable Disney Cruise Line adventures to photographing and meeting the Prince and Princess of Wales at Windsor Castle. Along the way, she built incredible friendships, including Jessica and Landon, our wonderful friends at Vacation Grocery Delivery, who became like family. She bravely battled Desmoplastic small round cell tumor, a rare and aggressive cancer, all while continuing to chase her dreams and inspire those around her. Today we'll dive into her journey, her love for Disney, the moments that shaped her life, and the new charity Capture, which they are creating that will help carry on her legacy and support young people fighting cancer. So stay with us as we celebrate Liz's incredible life, her achievements, and how we can all help continue the impact she made in the world as we sit down with her mom, Vicky. Vicky, thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome to the Main Street Magic Podcast.
No, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
So Rhonda and myself have heard a lot about you, a lot about Liz, a lot about your family, your love for Disney and all of that through Landon and Jessica, mutual friends who happen to run Vacation Grocery Delivery here in Florida. So I just wanted to start a little bit and have you share with our listeners about your family, about Liz, her love for photography, for Disney, and kind of that journey through all of that.
Yeah, definitely. So, Disney came to us really via Liz. Liz was born and decided she loved Disney almost from the moment she arrived. When she was 2, she would hear a Disney song on the radio, and within a note or two, she'd be able to tell you what the song was, which film it was from, and which character sang it. So it kind of became her party trick, and people were like, whoa, how did she do that? And that was before we ever kind of stepped foot in Disney. So soon after we realized how passionate she was, we took her to Disneyland Paris, and she loved it. And then we booked another trip to Disneyland Paris for about 6 months later. And then we discovered Disney Cruise Line,
yes.
which was definitely to become our our greatest pleasure and our biggest spending of money over the next few years. So it was the first year the ships had come to Europe. So they were doing this amazing deal where we could do 10 nights on board with everything included for the same price as we could do 3 nights in Disneyland Paris.
Wow.
And and I was a little bit skeptical. I was like, oh, I've never really been on a cruise. I'm not sure I'm going to like this. And my mum was like, oh, come on, Elizabeth will love it. You'll have a great time. And what's the worst case? You just don't go on another one. So we got on board. And yeah, we never looked back, really. It was always about the characters for Liz. The interactions with the characters, the fact that she could play with them. We always said they were her first best friends. She was very, very shy as a young child and really found interacting with humans very, very difficult. But she never had that issue on the ship. And it became kind of oh, look, it's that girl. It's that girl. Let's see what she's going to do with those characters. And before you knew it, Donald would be proposing to her, or she'd be playing hide and seek with Stitch, or she'd be trying on shoes as Cinderella, or borrowing Daisy's bracelet. And she was never interested in kind of standing there having the photo. It was always about, what can we play? How can we do? And that started as a little girl and carried on and on and on. And then when we had her younger brother, Matteo, we did a transatlantic, because I'm a teacher. So normally transatlantics are not an option for us because they don't fit in nicely around term time. But of course, you get a lovely long time on the ship. So we're a definite win. And he was a year and a half when we first took him on board, and she kind of passed on that love of playing with characters to him. And like her, he finds people very difficult and often struggles to talk really to people, even now aged 8. But guided by Liz, that was never a problem with characters. So between them, they would, just go up and talk, and I'd be like, come on, there's other people. You can't stay there all day. And the characters would be like, no, leave them, they're having a great time. And they certainly did. So our very, very best memories as a family have been on the Disney cruise ship. Liz was diagnosed with a rare sarcoma, Desmoplastic small round cell tumor, in January 2024. She was 16, and up until that point, she'd been the healthiest person alive. She'd had 1 week off school with chickenpox when she was 7. And apart from that, there had never been any medical drama. And I think initially when she was diagnosed with cancer, we were quite blasé, and we kind of said, 80% of young people with cancer survive now. You're young, you're strong, you've got this, you're going to be fine. But little did we know at the time that actually her cancer was incredibly aggressive, incredibly rare, and there's no established treatment protocol for it. So the survival rates for DSRCT are only 15%. So 15% of people make 5 years. And beyond that, it's even less. Liz lived just 10 months. She died in November 2024, but not before making some utterly incredible memories. So we managed to squish in that 10 months 3 more Disney cruises.
Oh, wow.
And we went on Dream for the first time, because we'd only done the Magic up until that point. So we did our first trip on the Dream, and then went back again twice, and a trip to Disneyland Paris as well. So lots of Disney and lots of photographs, because Liz's second passion after Disney was photography, and she was never to be found without a camera in her hand, really. Wherever she went, the camera followed her. And she took pictures of Prince William at Windsor Castle. She took photos of Six the Musical. She took photographs of some famous British comedians, Michael McIntyre and Rob Brydon. She took photographs of Drag Race UK. You name it. Liz and her camera got about taking photos. So she was the kind of person that no matter what happened to her, she always looked on the positive side of life. She never said, why me? Or this isn't fair? Or why am I going to die? Instead, she said, right, what are we going to do? How are we going to make the most of every single day that comes our way? And on 2 of the 3 cruises, Liz was actually quite poorly and her pain levels were really tricky to control. And it would have been really easy for her to say, actually, I'm not getting up, I'm staying in bed. But instead, she said, cancer doesn't exist when I'm on the ship, Mum. And on the first trip we did, she actually went up right from the atrium to the top floor of the Dream without using a lift. And I was like, I'm not sure that's a great idea. Liz was in a wheelchair most of the time by then. And she was like, I am not using a wheelchair on the ship. She did relent a little as the trips went on, but not, if a character was seen, she was off chasing them around the ship, just like when she was a little girl. So we are very, very grateful for our Disney memories. We were always grateful for them, but all the more so now.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it's such an incredible story. Liz was such an incredible person. We sat just a couple months ago with Jessica and Landon one night after we went to have dinner with them and all, and we just sat and talked about Liz, and they told us so many stories and just so many wonderful things about her that, I just wanted to get you on to chat with us. Where did her love of photography come from? Is that something that ran anywhere in your family? What made her want to pick up a camera?
Yeah, so I was always a bit of a crazy photo taker of the children. So I think she saw me taking photos and thought that's what you did. But I by no means share Liz's talent. I have a theory that if you take 1,000 pictures, you might get a good one. So just keep taking them and then you'll have one you love. But Liz was just much more natural. She knew exactly what to do, how to take the shot, how to put people at ease. I've got photos of her in her cot, actually, being really tiny with a plastic camera, pretending to take photos. And then ones of her kind of on all our holidays. She saved up and bought her first kind of expensive camera when she was only 10. She just kept every Christmas, every birthday, money went in the pot. And I'd be like, what are you saving up for? And she was like, a camera, of course.
Oh, wow.
Then she persuaded her primary school, which is kind of like your elementary school, to run a photography club because she wanted to go to it. Then she chose a high school on the basis that they offered photography as a course. Bought her second camera when she did her GCSE exams, and it just went from there, really. She was constantly storing up ideas of new photo shoots she wanted to do and new ways she wanted to explore photography. But for her, it was all about exploring emotion. I think as someone who often found the world quite difficult to navigate and feel confident in, because Liz, despite the kind of fame she achieved in the UK, was the least likely person to seek that out known to man.
Yeah.
She was very shy and often felt like she didn't quite know her place in the world. And behind her camera, she became someone really confident who knew exactly what she wanted to achieve and how she wanted a photograph to look. And people would often look at her and be like, wow, is that the same person that walked in here and, wasn't quite sure what to say, because suddenly she was engaging and, this person with all these ideas after having looked so shy only kind of 10-15 minutes previously.
Wow. Yeah. So that was kind of her extroverted self was behind that camera, which is so funny. I mean, that's me in this podcast. I'm a very different person outside of having to get on a microphone and talk and do these types of things. But I kind of found my passion and something that makes me happy and all of that. So did she teach herself everything about photography? I mean, when she started that class at the school and all that club, was she just kind of figuring it out along with everybody else, or did she take classes?
Yeah, no. So at that point, she was definitely still figuring it out. We went on a wildlife photography course that I'd booked her for Christmas when she was probably about 11 or 12, and she very quickly decided that wasn't the way she wanted to do it. She had very firm ideas about what she wanted to do. She started classes at school when she was 14 to get to her GCSE examinations, but even around that, she always had a very firm idea of what her style was. And she was lucky in the last year to work with lots of incredible photographers. Gareth Catamol, who's taken photos of lots of the stars, who works for Getty, Richard Heathcote, who's photographed the Olympics and things like that,
Wow.
as well as Rankin, who's kind of the most famous British portrait photographer. So she had lots of people giving her lots of advice. And one of the things they really loved about her was the fact that she did have those opinions of what she wanted her work to look like. And
Yeah.
she'd come back and she'd be like, yeah, I love how you did that, but that's not how I want to do it. I want to do it this way. Can you help me create
Yeah.
this kind of look? Because that's what I'm looking for. And she had a very strong creative vision of what she wanted her photos, and a wicked sense of humor. So she had an exhibition of her photos just the week before she died, and she hated taking photos in black and white. All of her photos were in color. And Gareth, who was one of her mentors, he only took photos in black. He does take color, but a lot of his portraiture is in black and white.
Yeah.
So she got all her photos up, and he looked at her and he was like, when's the black and white exhibition, Liz? And she just looked at him totally deadpan and went, how about next year, Gareth, over my dead body? And she knew by then she was going to die. But that kind of black humor was really one of the things that got her through. She
Yeah.
was very, very pragmatic, very, very determined, and very forthright in asserting that it was okay to talk about these things and it wasn't something to hide under the carpet. And in lots of ways, that's the biggest gift that she left to her 8-year-old brother, because they were exceptionally close. And we talk about her all the time as if she's still here, as if, without that kind of sadness. When we talk about her, are we sad some of the time? Yes. But there's also a lot of joy when we talk about her. And I think the fact that she was so open and so accepting of her fate really has allowed him to go on living his life in a positive way, which
Wow.
is exactly what she wanted for him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can see just talking to you, I can see the joy in your face when you talk about her, and I'm sure people can hear the joy in your voice talking about her. And, I thought that was another important reason to have you on is just, people are always going through something, and there's grief and there's turmoil and there's always hard things, and approaching those and how to deal with them is so tough. And, for someone like Liz, so young and so wise, to be able to live that way and to, be an inspiration for everybody else on what they can do when they're faced with those types of things is just, it's absolutely incredible. I mean, up until the last moment, and now she lives on through you guys and through this story and all this type of stuff. One thing I want you to tell me about and tell all the listeners about is that moment that she got to go and photograph and meet and the Prince and Princess of Wales. How did that come about? What was that like for her?
Yeah, so Liz, when we knew that Liz wasn't going to survive, we asked her what she really wanted to do. And what she really wanted to do was meet a photographer in Los Angeles called David Sue. So we got medical permission for her to travel. She was doing quite well on chemotherapy at that point. She was quite stable. We'd got permission from insurance. Jessica and Landon had said, we've got air miles, we can lend you air miles, we can get her there. And we got it all lined up. And we were literally waiting to confirm the actual date. David Seward said he'd work with her, if we could get her there. So the morning of chemotherapy dawned, and we needed to book it that day so that we could then travel when she would be not at risk from infection. So it had to all be done quite last minute to make sure chemotherapy started, which meant the dates would line up. So we rang the insurance company the day the chemo started, and they backed out. And they said, actually, because the cancer's so rare, we've decided we can't cover a trip to the US because they are going to want to do lots of tests if she gets admitted for something like a blood transfusion, and it's just not viable for us to do it. And I begged and I offered to pay more money for insurance, and I rang about 100 other different insurance companies and begged them, and I got nowhere. So I had to go to her and say, not only can we not save your life, but I can't give you the one thing you asked me to give you. I can't give you this one day with this photographer that I had said I could. And Liz, as always, was very pragmatic and said, it's all right, Mum, I know you've tried your best. You know, it isn't to be. And I said, well, look, there must be some things in the UK that you could photograph. What kinds of things might you like to photograph here if we can make that happen? And I'm going to keep working on the LA thing and see if I can make it happen meanwhile. So she made a list, things like photographing a fashion model, going to London Fashion Week, watching a movie be filmed, going to watch a West End musical and photographing a rehearsal of one. So things that, felt tricky but achievable.
Yeah.
To happen. And I said, well, look, I'm going to put the list on Twitter. We'll see what happens, right? And she was like, you can do what you want, Mum, because no one's gonna take any notice of it. And I was like, well, if we pull one thing off, then it's one thing that we don't think we're going to pull off, right? I said, and if this doesn't work, I'll email people or I'll call people or something. I was like, I'm going to make at least one of these happen. So we put the tweet out there and it got shared about 4,000 times.
Wow.
So she got loads of amazing offers to do things that weren't on the list. so a couple of things from the list, but lots of really cool things that weren't. And one of these was to go and photograph the London air ambulances and their pilots at work. And she was like, whoa, that's really cool. So that was, and unbeknownst to us, after that contact, a guy called Jonathan, who's the CEO of London Air Ambulance, he got in touch with the Palace because Prince William is actually the patron of London Air Ambulance. So they had contacts and said, look, have you guys got any photography opportunities coming up? I found out about this young photographer who's looking for photography opportunities, and it would be really cool if she could do something with you guys. So they got in touch in June time and invited her to go and photograph an investiture, which is where people kind of get their awards from one of the royal family. Mm-hmm. So they invited us to Windsor to one of Prince William's investitures, and she couldn't make it. It clashed with chemo dates. We just couldn't twist it kind of far enough for her to be able to go. And the Palace were great. They were like, that's okay, we get this. It's okay. You can come when another time. We'll just keep inviting you until the dates worked. And then over the summer, they don't hold investitures. So the next time we heard them was in December, just a couple of days after we'd heard that Liz only had 12 weeks left to live. But that also meant that she wasn't doing chemo. So it wasn't an infection risk. We knew she could travel. And they invited her down at the start of October. And we went thinking very much that Matteo, Aaron and I would be kind of in a room as chief bag carriers, as we so often were on Liz's adventures. And that Liz might get a quick wave or a quick hello from Prince William as she was taking photos, but not expecting to meet the prince and princess in any way, shape or form. And what we didn't know at the time was that even photographing the investiture was massive, because photographers aren't allowed inside the investiture room itself. They have to take photos remotely. And Liz was allowed to take photos inside the actual investiture room. Wow. So the photos she got in there were super rare. And the team had said they would publish them on their social media afterwards, which she was super excited about, because that was the kind of first big exposure that her photos had really, beyond friends and family and friends of friends. So we didn't expect anything other than that. I mean, that was huge in itself. So we got to Windsor Castle and the team showed her all around. And then they said, afterwards, we're going to take you to a little room and give you some afternoon tea. And Prince William's going to pop in and say hello. So at this point, Matteo is beside himself with excitement. He's like, I told you we might get to meet Prince William. I told you it might happen. And you said it wouldn't. And I was like, well, I didn't know it was going to happen. I thought we were just here to do this with Liz, and then they were going to give you a tour around the castle. And that was still really cool. And so we went into this room, and Prince William and Princess Catherine both walked in, which was completely unexpected. It was the first time Princess Catherine had kind of done an engagement since her own cancer diagnosis. So it was a big deal and not something that we'd expected in any way, shape, or form. And they sat with us for about half an hour just chatting
Oh,
about
wow.
everything. They were so good with the children, so natural. And what Liz really, really loved about them was how incredible they were with Matteo and how at ease they put him, because he is really, really shy. And they got him chatting away to them, and he was telling them about his little jelly cat toy. And Liz and the princess were talking about cameras and taking photos. And it was just really, really lovely. Liz often said in interviews that it was like sitting in your front room talking to people that you'd always known,
Yeah.
and that's how at ease they put us. And after we'd met them and said goodbye, they they gave us a tour around the castle, and then we kind of headed into Windsor to look around jellycat shops, which are also a big favourite of both the children. So they were essentially getting as much money out of us as they could. So, and while we were there, we had a text from the palace asking how we would feel about them sharing the photos that they'd taken of Liz with the princess and us with the prince and princess. And we said, yeah, absolutely, no issue with that whatsoever. And then the world went a little bit crazy. So we're stood there just shopping, and my mum rang, and she was like, "You're on the TV," and I was
What?
like, "What?" She's like, "The photo of you, it's on every channel." So
Wow.
British TV, because it was the first time the princess had been out, just were like, "Whoa, the princess is back!" And the photo of Liz hugging her made kind of all the national TV channels. It made all the newspapers. Um, Matteo was like beside himself with excitement. For 2 days, we just literally saw ourselves everywhere. And he was like, "I'm famous." And I was like, "For a day, you're famous for a day.
Yep.
That's okay." But yeah, no, really incredible. And the whole team there have just been so lovely. And we're still in touch with them now.
Wow.
They check in to see how we're doing. We went to the Princess's Carol concert in December. And yeah, no, they couldn't have been nicer people. Really, really lovely people.
What an incredible story. And, with the way that things just are now, I mean, we're very much, of course, here in the United States, we're very much a nation that is divided. And I know it can be that way throughout the world. But to see, all these people come together, like you're saying, that Twitter post was shared 4,000
Mhm.
times, by, I'm sure, people and people you never knew. And it's such an inspiration to see the way that people still come together, when, in
Yeah.
times like this, and as much as you can turn on the news and see all the bad that's going on, just imagine when you flip that channel and see Liz and the princess together, like that. I mean, it really does bring kind of hope and joy to everyone. Um, how did the relationship and the friendship with Jessica and Landon come about? Because I can tell you from probably, not long after we knew them, which hasn't been incredibly long, they were already telling us stories about your family and about Liz and the Disney Cruise Line and all. So where did that relationship and friendship and all kind of come from and spark?
Yeah, so that happened before COVID. So before COVID, when Jesse and Landon were on the Magic, we were lucky enough to do two cruises that year. So we'd gone on the first cruise and we got to know everyone a little bit. But I think when you go on two in the same year,
Yeah.
you then get to know people
Yeah.
much more. And we went back for the second cruise. So we got in May and then we went again late August. And Jesse was on the line with Mickey in the terminal at Dover, and the children were like, "It's Jessie," and Jessie was like, "It's you guys," and because of Jessie's role on that particular contract, she spent a lot of the time managing the lines, which meant we got extra bonus
Yeah.
Jessie time and got to see her in lots of lines. And the children just adored her, and particularly Liz. They just clicked straight away. And I think both have very similar positive personalities and
Yes.
both see the world in a very similar way. And
Yeah.
I think Liz saw Jessie and thought, that's who I want to be when I grow up. She always dreamed of working on board the ship. She loved Jessie's way with everybody and how kind and how friendly she was. And we knew Landon less on the ship because obviously he was very busy performing.
Yes.
We saw him occasionally and we'd met him through Jessie, but it wasn't really until after the ship that we kind of got to know Landon better. Um, and then we just kept in touch really over the years, and we FaceTimed and sent messages. And then when Liz got sick, we came up with this plan whereby, unbeknownst to Liz, Jessie and Landon were going to fly over and surprise her on on the ship. So we booked to go from Barcelona, and we Jesse and Landon flew into Barcelona from the US, and we flew into Barcelona, and Jesse and I were texting each other to make sure we were avoiding each other and not going to the same areas so we didn't blow our surprise reveal when we got on the ship. And then we got to the sail away party. And at the sail away party, Jessie just literally tapped Liz on the shoulder, and she turned around. And I don't think I have ever seen her look more excited or more delighted that Jessie was right there on the ship with Landon. And yeah, and it was this year really that we got to know in person Landon much better. So we saw them on the ship and had a wonderful time. And Liz did a photo shoot of them both on the ship, which was really special to her. And they hung out with us, and we got to spend a lot of time with them because they weren't working. So we got to have that kind of enjoyable time together, just enjoying each other. And then they flew over to us again in late October time. We were supposed to be meeting in Edinburgh, but unfortunately, because of some complications with Liz's medication, we couldn't get to Edinburgh. So they came to Yorkshire to us instead. And we gave them a British food tour of fish and chips and afternoon tea, and of course M&S Percy Pigs galore, which are Jessie's favourite. And
Yes.
just really got to enjoy hanging out and spending time together, which was really special to all of us, and especially special to Liz because they were very much her people.
Yeah.
And she knew that twice that year they dropped everything to come because she needed them and wanted to be with them. And that, to all of us, meant everything.
Yeah. I mean, they're two of the most wonderful people that we've ever been fortunate enough to meet and be able to call our friends. And, we promote vacation grocery delivery all the time because it's an absolutely wonderful service. It's a wonderful business, but the two folks that are behind it are just, world class and some of the best. What were Liz's favorite characters when, obviously it sounds like she loved them all, but, going on a ship, where are you headed first? Which character you headed to see first?
So Liz never had favorites
Okay.
of anything, but she was definitely a Fab Five girl. So princesses weren't as much. They were when she was younger, but as she was older, it was Mickey, it was Minnie, it was Donald, it was Daisy, it was Goofy, and Chip and Dale that were very definitely top of her list. And she was in every line. Even, from being 2.5 to being 17 on her last cruise, Liz was in every single character line going. So, which is probably how we got to know Jessie so well.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter if Mickey was out 6 times that day. Liz was going to be in that line 6 times, because it just never got old to her ever. And it never got old to us watching her because she just always had a new game or a new idea or a new story, and it was magical. Yeah, truly magical. The Disney Magic was her favorite ship, though. She did have a favorite ship.
Yeah.
She went on the Dream, but only because Jessie arranged
Uh-huh, of course.
for the characters from the Magic to join her on the Dream.
Wow.
So, you know, so the Magic was very definitely home and her very special place to
Yeah.
be. The Dream came second, but yeah, lots of very special memories on board
Yeah.
both.
I mean, with how wonderful the Disney parks are around the world, there's something so different and unique and special and intimate about the cruise line that I think it's so hard for people to understand unless they take a Disney cruise. There's almost no way to explain it, you know, and
No.
obviously through your stories, I think people can tell, you know, that this is kind of how the cruise lines are. Were there certain movies or music with Disney that she was drawn to particularly?
Liz loved Moana, and
Okay.
was waiting for Moana 2 to come out desperately. She didn't quite manage to see it. But I think you're right. It was about the people for
Yeah.
us, the cruise, without any doubt, always. And interestingly, when we went back to Disneyland Paris, just before Liz died, we spent the whole time we were in Paris saying, it's not the ship, is it? Yeah, this is why we cruise, because
Yeah.
everybody on the ship just goes out of their way to make it magical, but also you get to know people really, really well. And there are people now that, you know, we've been seeing year after year after year who are still there, who recognize the children, and the characters and the character helpers get to know the children so very well.
Yeah.
And get to kind of really create those bonds. And especially with those children that are shy, they've got that time to play, that time to make those real magical moments. And occasionally, if you're lucky, we did snowball fights with Goofy, and had a great time, because lots of people had gone out overnight because we were there overnight, and we'd come back and the ship was almost empty, so we had about half an hour just literally playing with Goofy. Or Liz had a time where Stitch handed her a note and she went to play hide and seek with Stitch just outside the cinema.
Wow. I love that.
So lots of really, really just special moments. Lots of special moments with Pluto, who's Mateo's favorite.
Yeah.
He takes some dog toys whenever he gets on board.
Tell me a little bit more about DSRCT and what you and your family and all now are doing to raise awareness for this, as well as the charity that you are working on to create and the crowdsourcing that you're doing right now.
Yeah, so Desmoplastic small round cell tumour is a really rare and aggressive sarcoma. In the UK, there are only 12 cases a year. So there are a few more than that in America, but still not a whole bunch. One of the really challenging things about it is there isn't a charity for it, or wasn't when Liz was diagnosed, anywhere in the world, which meant that finding information about potential treatments, about trials, was like searching for a needle in a haystack. And we spent a lot of our time being terrified that we were going to miss the one thing that would make a difference, or that would give her longer, or that would save her. And we increasingly became determined that this wasn't the right way to do things. And we were really lucky in that friends and family helped. And we paid for a consult in the US with a doctor who treats more cases a year than any other in the world. So we were able to get access to her at $4,500 for a half-hour virtual appointment, which I guess probably doesn't sound shocking to you in the US, but in the UK we would pay. We have the NHS, and medical consultations are normally free, so to us felt a lot of money. And we were able to get some answers anecdotally to questions, but on the whole, there isn't research even into things like how effective is radiotherapy, or when do you do surgery, or which chemotherapy do you do at the point where the first one fails? And that kind of information just isn't out there. So Liz set us a final item on her bucket list. And the final item on her bucket list was to raise as much money as we could to fund research into Desmoplastic small round cell tumour. She wanted us to set up a charity, but she was very determined that the charity wasn't to be named after her. She wanted it to be a charity for everyone that would make a difference to all young people and that all young people would feel like they're a part of. So we are in the process of setting up the charity, which is called Capture, the Desmoplastic Small Round Cell Tumor Charity. And we hope to make that worldwide and have somewhere where all of that information is in one place. So patients, families, and oncologists can get information from one central point without having to hunt for that needle in a haystack. We want to support families and we also want to fund research. So far, since Liz died in the last 3 months, we have raised just over £100,000.
Wow.
And that will fund our first piece of research, which will be a living database of all existing research around desmoplastic small round cell tumour from everywhere in the world, which is kind of like a modern version of a literature review. So unlike a literature review, it won't go out of date because it uses technology to make sure it can be updated, but a real life doctor looks at it and analyzes that information and then decides the kind of ranking of that information in that research.
Okay.
We hope that that will mean no one ever again has to hunt for a needle in a haystack and be frightened that they're missing the thing that will make a difference. But we also hope it will give us promising avenues to follow in terms of research. So, for instance, where a PhD student might have done a research in a lab that's looked hopeful, but then there hasn't been the funding to carry that forward. Because one of the issues with DSRCT being so rare is that it isn't of interest to big pharmaceutical companies. It doesn't get national funding from organisations like Cancer Research UK because it's too small to be on their radar. So the only people fundraising are people like us as families. So we currently have a Just Giving page set up, which you can find by searching either Just Giving Desmoplastic Small Round Cell Tumour, which is a bit of a mouthful, or Just Giving Liz Hatton, which is much easier to remember. Which we are fundraising through to try and get as much research done in as short a time as possible as we can, because the reality is that young people are dying from this cancer not because there isn't a treatment out there. They're dying from it because the research hasn't been done to figure out if a treatment exists, because there's never been funding in place to do it. And I think as a parent, that feels very different. We can't save Liz, but we can hopefully keep other families together in the future by making sure that young people get the best possible treatment out there that's been found to be researched and the most effective against this cancer, rather than the hodgepodge situation that we have at the moment of no designated treatment protocol because one thing hasn't been found to be more effective than the other because nobody has been able to research it thoroughly enough.
Yeah. Well, Landon told me to have tissues nearby when I was going to speak with you. But the crazy thing is, again, the joy that you just exude and that, just hearing about Liz and her legacy that is going to live on forever, through this, through you all, is just absolutely incredible. Like I feel more uplifted than I thought I would, speaking about something like this.
Liz had a rule, and the rule was you're not allowed to cry.
Okay. All right.
She instilled it in all of us throughout her lifetime. And I'm not going to say tears aren't shed, because they very definitely are. But equally, we then pull ourselves up and we look at each other and we say, what would Liz do? And the reality is, Liz would say, get on with it and do something useful. Don't just sit in a corner and cry. What's the point of that? So that is very much the way we try and live our lives. Yeah. Some days we do it more effectively than others. And there are days when it does all feel too much. But on the whole, we have a duty now to live not only for ourselves, but for Liz, and to make the difference in the world that she would have made had she been alive.
Well, I mean, your family, Liz, are just absolutely incredible and inspirational. I think it would be, the easy thing to do is to sulk and be sad and just grieve forever. And, you're turning this into such a positive story and outcome, and it is, but that's the part that you all are choosing to focus on. And I just think that's absolutely incredible. You know, it's the Disney magic being her favorite ship just seems so on point because of the magic that, you know, she offered every single day to folks that were around her. I'm so thankful that I've had this chance to interact with you and talk with you and speak with you and learn more about Liz. I hope that, you know, folks will go out. Say the site one more time, the Just Giving Liz Hatton.
Yeah, Just Giving Liz Hatton.
Yeah. So, you know, I want everybody to go out there, do what you can to help this, to help the research, the funding and everything, you know, and just raise more and more awareness for this. I'm just blown away. I'm almost speechless, which doesn't happen to me often when I've got a microphone in front of me. So I just want to thank you so much for sharing your story, for sharing Liz's story. I know that our listeners will appreciate it, and you know, they can take inspiration and hope and everything out of this conversation with you. Thank you again for joining me.
No, thank you so much for having me on. I really, really appreciate it. It's been lovely to get to meet you.
You too, and I hope that we'll keep in touch. And I'm excited to chat with Jessica and Landon again here soon, and share more stories about Liz and hear more from them about her. So again, thank you so much, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
No, thank you very much. Bye.
Liz's story is a powerful reminder that passion, creativity, and love can make an impact far beyond what we can imagine. From her love of Disney and Disney Cruise Line to the way she used photography to tell stories and inspire others, Liz's legacy continues to touch lives in incredible ways. As we wrap up today's episode, we encourage you to learn more about DSRCT and the important research being done to fight this rare cancer. Thank you for joining us for this very special episode. Liz's story is one of joy, courage, and the magic of living life to the fullest, and we are grateful to share it with you. If you'd like to help raise awareness for DSRCT, be sure to check out the links in our show notes. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with others who may be inspired by Liz's journey. Until next time, keep making memories and cherishing the moments that truly matter. We'll see you real soon.
Jeremy and Rhonda are more than a little fond of Disney World, so they made this podcast to share it all with you. Reports and resorts, top 10 lists of all sorts, Main Street Magic's bringing it home for you.